Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Dad's Den, Sunday, July 20th, 2025. We're sort of hitting the heart of summer here in Vegas. Our summer goes kind of from like mid-May to mid-October, and it can get hot even before and after that a little bit, but that's when it's pretty reliably hot. And I look like I'm having a little bit of trouble with the stream in terms of looking a little bit shaky. Maybe that'll work its way out. We shall see. And my wife tells me that I'm live. Or am I Memorex? Yeah. Well, this looks like it might be kind of a shaky one, but it looks okay on my end. Okay, well, here it's freezing every couple seconds in what I'm looking at, but it does now occur to me I did not bring up my little cheat sheet that I use. I better do that. Well, what an amazing beginning to this stream. Is it any wonder why I'm slowly becoming a major force in entertainment? You know what? It's sort of a lazy day. I got my first full night's sleep last night in about a week. I couldn't even tell you why, but I've been either having trouble getting to sleep or just having waking up at 3:30 in the morning and not being able to get back to sleep. So I'm still a little bit oogie. All right. And I hope everybody's having a good Sunday. If not, I hope it gets better real soon. So let's jump in to stuff today. So obviously the Superman movie's been out for a little bit now. Seems like it's good, it's bad stuff is more or less run its course. People either dig it or they don't dig it. But now we're kind of getting into money matters, because obviously, and again, the money stuff doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's all subjective. A lot of the movies I love just utterly flopped at the box office. And I don't care. But it is important from the standpoint of you're trying to start a new major franchise with this thing. Warner Brothers is. So that, begs the question. It's like, well, is it, how's it doing? Does it look like it's going to be a good franchise starter or not? And I've seen people argue on both sides of this. So I'm like, okay, I need some context. I need some data. I'm a data guy. It's what I do for a living. So I started putting together some data. And what I wanted to do was take a look at films where there's fairly reliable data that were sort of, I would look at them as some of the major superhero releases in the last 50 or so years. And especially ones that launched franchises. So I was looking at Superman from 1978. I'm looking at Batman from 1989. X-Men, which is 2000. Spider-Man 2002. Batman Begins 2005, I think. There it goes. Iron Man 2008. I looked at Avengers. And then I also crunched the numbers on Avengers Endgame, because that was kind of the first, I think, successful ending to the new concept of these shared universe film things. So then the question is, where does Superman stand? Okay, so here's what I did. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll look at, you look at global box office, you adjust for inflation, which is actually kind of tricky because inflation is different from one place to another. So when you're looking at global, you really should be taking every country's total and adjusting it for inflation based on that country. I think typically what we do is we actually look at American inflation, and we run it all through that. I guess maybe that makes sense to an extent because we're denominating everything in dollars, but either way. I wanted to do something a little different. I did look at that, but what I decided to do is look at U.S. domestic box office. Divide that by the average movie ticket price for the year it came out to get an idea of the number of tickets it sold. And then take that a step further and look at the number of tickets sold in ratio to the total population, because obviously a movie released when there's 100 million fewer Americans, that's 100 million tickets that it couldn't possibly sell because those consumers didn't exist. So that's kind of the numbers that I crunched on this thing. And it was kind of interesting, actually. I think it gave me a better appreciation. So if we just are looking at like the U.S. domestic numbers adjusted for inflation, so this is not global. Because remember, the global box office is a much bigger deal now than it was. So it's a little bit apples to oranges if you're doing that. But domestic, okay. Most of these major franchise starters average about $650 million domestic in their box office. Superman from this year looks like it's going to wind up more in the neighborhood of about 375 million. It depends on its hold. It's been pretty good, but still, I mean, it's not going to keep pumping in the same numbers week after week. So maybe it could get up to 400, but it looks like 375 is probably pretty realistic. That puts it ahead, actually, of X-Men and Batman Begins, about 100 million below Iron Man. Those are like the bottom three out of this group. The top three in this statistic, Avengers Endgame, Avengers, and 2002's Spider-Man, which really blew up. So it's on the low end in terms of just looking at the ticket, or the box office adjusting for inflation. All right. If we look at the ticket to population ratio, again, looks like it's going to be the worst performer of all of these movies. The three poorest other than that are X-Men 2000, Batman Begins 2005, Iron Man 2008. Again, the best performers in that regard were Avengers Endgame, 78's Superman, and 89's Batman. But the point is this: all of those movies did produce successful franchises. You got 3 sequels to the Superman. You got 3 sequels to Batman. You got a couple to Batman Begins. Iron Man helped launch the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, as did Avengers, obviously. Spider-Man got, a couple sequels, and then it's sort of now being referenced in the new Spider-Man movie. So even though the Superman movie's kind of at the low end of all those movies did launch successful franchises, which means that 2025 Superman probably is going to be strong enough to launch a franchise. It isn't tracking numbers that are so far below all of these that it makes that unrealistic. So I think it's probably, from that regard, going to do okay. Just for comparison's sake, I looked at some of the superhero TV shows that still get, kind of remembered to this day. This is from back in the day. Just wanted to look at what their ratings looked like. Now, the Nielsen rating is basically the percentage of U.S. households who had their TV, or I guess maybe the percentage of TVs that are tuned in to a particular show. And I looked at them at their heights. Like, what is the best rating they managed to get? Adventures of Superman, 1952, got a 30. 66 Batman got a 30.8. In Wonder Woman, lowest of these got a 18. Incredible Hulk a 20. So again, we're all in that. If you look at the population ratio for those movies, kind of runs from about I want to say about a 10% to about a 30%. These are in that same range. Superman's going to be generally in that range. So I think it's probably going to be okay. I think the key then is you've done okay with Superman, right? Seems like it's doing well with kids and families. Again, this is totally separate from whether you liked it as a movie or not. We're just kind of looking at the money side of this. The question now is going to be the follow-up, right? You do get movies where the following movie actually does better than the original. You do get that, and sometimes they do worse. All right. This one's follow-up, movie-wise, is Supergirl. And the way they're playing it looks like it might be a little bit trickier to get that kid family audience in. However, it might also pull in more adults because it looks like it's going to be a little more adult in the way she's portrayed. But yeah, that's going to really be the key. Like, you got probably a decent movie to launch it off, to start the whole thing. So what's the follow-up going to be in terms of Supergirl, in terms of Superman 2? That's going to really tell the story on, if this franchise is going to be successful ultimately. So there you go. I crunched a few numbers, and that's where we're at. Superman is sort of at the low end of the scale of these other franchise starters, but it is sort of within that range. So probably going to be okay in that regard. Now, speaking of Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, from what I hear, Spider-Man 2, the one with Dr. Octopus, is going to be getting a new theatrical release. This is going to be an extended cut, and that's going to happen later this fall. So you might want to look out for that, especially if, you weren't alive yet and didn't get to see it on the big screen. It's definitely a good big screen movie. I personally put Spider-Man 2 probably in this, it's one of those things where it kind of moves around a little bit, but I'd put it in probably the top 5 superhero movies ever made, along with Spider-Man, along with The Rocketeer's one of my favorites. I don't know. Like I said, certain things move around, but I think Spider-Man 2 is probably it is one of the best superhero movies ever made. So if you never gotten to see it on a big screen, you might want to look out for that in fall. Lady Wendelin says, I wonder how well it would go if Superman shows up in her movie and he tells her a bitch. But Superman doesn't do that. And in fact, Supergirl didn't do that either. I'm kind of a big fan of the Supergirl that you got from like the 70s into the 80s before they killed her in Crisis on Infinite Earths. Not real impressed with what I'm seeing from this new version of the character. That's just me, I think they're trying to pull in a younger crowd because they see the kind of the writing on the wall that they're losing younger viewers to some extent to streaming, to just TikTok and screwing around on Instagram. It's kind of what movies went through in the 50s when TV started becoming a big deal. It did survive that by doing spectacles that you couldn't do on TV. It comes down to quality. I think, the other problem is there's so many just rude people out there that you have to deal with nowadays because folks aren't kind of brought up to be on their best behavior when they're in public, that sometimes just going to a theater can be kind of a bummer because you've got to deal with maybe more conflict than you want to. So there's a few things I think working against them, but I think the danger with some of that is because, say, people like under 30 do not have the same movie-going habits that, say, people over 40 do, courting that audience in a way that might alienate the over 40s, if there's a risk there, there's a gamble there. because if it doesn't pay off, if those folks you're trying to get into your film don't show up, then you're out of luck. But we'll see. We'll see. Like Lady Gwendolyn said, maybe she'll redeem herself in the new movie. Maybe so. But speaking of old entertainment, see, that's the professionalism of this stream. I just saw this article about apparently Gunsmoke, 70 years after it premiered, is becoming a streaming hit. I saw this article, I think was from Den of Geek, reported that the latest Nielsen streaming report has it in the top 10 most watched acquired series. Okay. Which I guess means, not like a Netflix original or something. This is something that you acquired from elsewhere to show on your streaming. But it also was watched more measured minutes than Severance, which I've heard of, The Traitors, which I haven't heard of, 0 Day, which I haven't heard of, and Yellow Jackets, which I haven't heard of. I don't know if those are good things to compare it to or not. Severance seems to be very popular, though. That I do know, and it seems like it's got a big fan base, so beating that is actually kind of cool. You also have to think, though, that Gunsmoke was on for 20 years. 20 years. There's a lot of material there to watch. You got to actually take the time to do it, but there's many, many more hours of Gunsmoke in existence than there is of Severance or any of those other things. So you watch all of Severance. I don't know how many episodes there are, but, you can only watch them so many times, right? But Gunsmoke, if you start at the beginning and work your way all the way to the end, it's always going to be a new episode, and you're going to have way more minutes of viewing than you would probably if you watched all of Severance like 3 or 4 times. That might be part of it, but it gives me hope. I think that especially where young men are concerned, the better Westerns have a lot of great life lessons for men about how to behave honorably in a truly manly fashion, not as a large overgrown boy, but as an actual man. A lot of the stuff we hear, what do they call it? The manosphere. It's like, no. That is the Peter Panosphere. That is the overgrown boyosphere. It is not the manosphere. Men don't behave that way. But a lot of people don't have men in their lives, men and women. We're not raised with actual men in their lives to know what a man is supposed to behave like. And these are pretty good ways to learn. Gunsmoke, Bonanza, Have Gun Will Travel, do Paladin Alone. Paladin alone can make a man out of you if you watch and you understand. The Rifleman is another great one because that's a father raising his son, and you learn a lot from those things. So if you didn't have those examples in life, getting them from those, not the worst way to go. At least it's better than nothing. It's better than listening to, Andrew Tate. It's a hell of a lot better than listening to Andrew Tate. But yeah, I thought that's interesting that it is, and maybe that'll help actually people find a lot of this stuff. For me, it's not a matter of like, I want the old stuff to beat the new stuff. Like I said, I don't care. If I'm the only person on earth watching a particular thing, but I like it, I'm good. It's fine. But I do like it when people discover quality stuff from the past. My daughter and her friends yesterday were watching Jaws. Now, my daughter's seen Jaws, and we've seen it on the big screen together. But some of her friends hadn't seen it. And it worked, man. It really got them. And they're asking her, well, is he going to live? She's like, I'm not telling you. So she wouldn't spoil it for them. And they had a good time watching Jaws. Well, it's a freaking good movie. It doesn't matter when it was made. My daughter and a friend of hers one time went and saw Psycho as a re-release in the theater. Right. And I didn't go with them. I went to a few of those. I mean, I'd let them sit on their own. But there are a few of the movies like, I want to go to that too. I think I was maybe busy that day, and I've seen Psycho. So I was like, yeah, you guys go have fun. So, a couple hours later, I go pick my daughter up at the theater, and they were probably, I don't know, 16, 17 at the time, maybe something like that. So I go pick her up, oh, how'd you like the movie? And she's like, when it turned out, you know what, I won't spoil it here just in case there are others, but she didn't know what the twist was. Neither of them knew the twist going in. I assumed the twist is so famous, they had to have known what was coming. They didn't know what was coming. And it freaked them out. And I'm going, Hitchcock, still effective all these years later, assuming you didn't know what was going to happen. Oh, yeah. They enjoyed Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Yeah, the funny thing with that was I went and saw that one while they were going, too. But I was asking, asked my daughter afterwards, and she goes, Paul Newman and Robert Redford were really good looking. I said, yeah. Yeah, they were both known for being really good looking, in fact. It sort of shocked her and her friend of like, wow, those guys are really, really handsome. And I'm thinking, too, that they also actually look like adult men. And so many adult men nowadays don't. Not a bad thing necessarily, because people do a lot less smoking and a lot less drinking, and they don't age as fast as they used to. But I'm like, yeah, they're probably used to these guys who kind of still look like teenagers. And here's a couple of actual men, and those are a couple of men who were kind of goofy as well. I mean, they weren't like your old school guys. They were new, hip, sort of progressive dudes back in the 60s and 70s. Howdy, Ramey. How's it going, man? Hope you're having a good Sunday. So that's Gunsmoke. Apparently, it's a big streaming hit right now. If you've never seen Gunsmoke, go check it out, man. You might dig it. And again, there's a lot of good, solid westerns from back in the day. And some of them, too, that aren't even, like Tate is one that I did a review of on my site. Not a well-known western, only got a season, but solid. There's a lot of them, man. If you haven't gotten into those, you might just dig them. Let's talk about some new releases. The Atlantean #3. I've talked about this. I reviewed these on my site, or on my channel, I guess I should say. And I'm not blogging anymore like I used to, so it's not my site, it's my channel. This one launched this week. Delivery is expected in October. So basically, the Atlantean are stories of King Cole. Very, very reminiscent of the black and white Marvel Conan mags of the 70s and 80s. I've had a lot of fun with them. There is a catch-up package. Not catch-up package, a catch-up package for new readers who want to get the first 2 issues. There's also a collection. And I believe you can find the first 2 issues also on Critical Blast and on Amazon. I think they're on Amazon for like $15 a pop. I don't know if if the deal's better if you do it here or not, but I've backed it. I'm having fun with the Atlantean. King Cole fighting the Serpent Men. It's just good stuff. So you might want to be on the lookout for that. It is live now. The Rejects #2. I don't know that much about this, but I thought the art looked kind of fun. Cartoony, kind of reminds me a little bit of the European cartoony style. It's from Silverline. It's on Fund My Comic. Forgotten, unwanted heroes showing up even when people still don't want them to show up to save the world. From Roland Mann, wrote it, Rick Plata, who did the pencils. $7 print. Not sure how many pages. Did not say how many pages. $7 isn't too bad. Oh, Ramey says, I watched Aquaman 2 last night. I didn't think it was that bad. Yeah, it might not have been. We can all be overcritical of these things. There was the whole Amber Heard stuff going on with it. I've heard the first Aquaman movie was pretty fun. Just kind of a wild ride, which is what a lot of us are looking for in the movies. So, yeah, cool. Glad you liked it, man. Again, yeah, stuff, it gets a bad rep. And sometimes you watch it and you're kind of like, oh, well, I thought that was pretty good. And that's because, again, it's all subjective, man. A movie can come out, and if every other person on earth thinks it's the worst thing ever, you might still like it. You might be the one person that it's perfect for. Don't worry about whether it's popular or not. Just go give it a try, you know? I mean, if you read about, like, what it's about, and you're kind of like going, yeah, that doesn't really work for me, yeah, then, you know, you skip it. Like, you don't need to force yourself to watch things that you're pretty sure you wouldn't dig, but, you know, give stuff a try. There's a lot of movies that I've watched. I knew nothing about them, or, you know, people said they were terrible. And then I ended up liking them, and then I got another movie that I dig that I can kind of put in my pocket. So I think that's the way to go, man. That's a smart way to do it. Again, if you know somebody, if there's a critic and you're like in sync with them about 99% of the time, and they tell you this movie, I didn't like it, you know, you may not want to waste your time and your money. That's cool. But yeah, and especially when you're talking about Twitter and YouTube, there can be a lot of folks jumping on things, and it's fun to make fun of stuff, you know, and sometimes it'll kind of poison what you think about a thing, you know. So yeah, don't be afraid to give stuff a try. Like, I mean, you know, what's the worst that happens? You burn a couple hours of your life. I mean, I'm an old man now, so I got to be careful. I only have so many hours left to burn, but, you know, just give stuff a try. So anyways, yeah, you might want to give The Rejects #2 a try on Fund My Comic. Not too big of a buy-in. If you like a cartoonier take on stuff, that might be something to check out. All right, so saw this on the Bloody Disgusting website. Nothing but love stories there. Apparently, there is a Death Stalker remake. Obviously, a big 80s sword and sorcery, you know, kind of B-movie from 1983. So the remake is being done by director Steven Kostanski. Daniel Bernhardt will star. Here's the sort of description. The kingdom of Abraxon is under siege from the Dreadites, a mysterious horde of warriors whose sudden appearance are rumored to foretell the return of Necromimnon, an ancient sorcerer long thought dead. Such times of chaos are times of fortune for men like Deathstalker, who, having broken ties with all guilds and banners, now ekes an existence from the spoils recovered in the wake of Dreadite attacks. Our story begins when Deathstalker unknowingly recovers an enchanted amulet from a corpse-ridden battlefield and finds himself cursed by an arcane magic. Now pursued by a monstrous clan of assassins at the behest of the Dreadite Scourge, Deathstalker is forced into a perilous quest to reverse the curse and rid the realm of evil. Dude, if they pull it off, man, it would be it sounds like it'd be a fun sword and sorcery movie. I talked a little bit about the Red Sonja trailer last week, which a lot of people didn't dig it. You know, I thought it looks like it'd be a fun B movie, maybe. Is it exactly what everybody wanted from Red Sonja? You know, probably not, because obviously there's a certain amount of good girl art involved in Red Sonja, you know, with the chainmail bikini and stuff. It doesn't look like they're going to quite go that direction. There's a lot of skin showing. My problem was the woman they have playing the role does not look like a warrior. It doesn't really look like she kind of worked out a little bit for the role. I think a lot of us, that's why we like Xena. I'm not saying Lucy Lawless could actually go out and kill anybody in a sword fight, but she sort of had the right look. You know, it kind of felt like, okay, I know this is fantasy, etc., but I get it. But, you know, Red Sonja could be fun, but this one looks even more so maybe like a good, yeah, I agree. And I think it does look better than the Red Sonja. I think it looks like it could be a pretty fun, sword and sorcery flick. I mean, that'd be very cool. Yeah, the old Deathstalker series was pretty fun. And again, it is goofy fun, right? But God, we need goofy fun. Which I know, again, people argued over the Superman movie. It was goofy fun. And I get it. I mean, I get it. But, so anyways, be on the lookout for Deathstalker. I mean, from the image there, it looks like it is actively being filmed, so I'm sure it is going to come out at some point. maybe going to come out on, straight to streaming. I don't know if it'll be in the theaters. If Deathstalker actually gets in the theaters and trailers look decent, I'll go see it in the theaters. I have not seen a sword and sorcery type movie in the theaters in a long, long time. I might give that one a try. All right. And now for something completely different in terms of new releases. I saw Archie has some facsimiles coming out here soon. Betty and Veronica number 40 coming out in October of 2025 for $5. Betty and Veronica number 75 coming out in September for $5. And Sabrina coming out. This is Sabrina number 1 coming out August 2025 for $7. I actually pre-ordered that one already. Along with, I was going to show this before, but Super Teens. And I mostly grabbed this because you get a story done by David Brohock Williams and Gary Martin and Kelsey Shannon in the opening. And I'm a fan of those guys. There we go. And then you get some reprint stuff of the older thing where Archie, I've got a video I've prepped. I haven't filmed it yet. That's coming soon for me though. That's going to look at Marvel Comics and how they got into like all the fads of the 70s, And I'm thinking about it right now thinking, God, Archie kind of did the same thing. When Batman came out and the superhero stuff kind of got the revival in the Silver Age, let's do Archie superheroes, right? How does it fit into there? It's a comic strip. It doesn't fit into anything. It's just there. And I see them doing that stuff now, kind of working off the sort of CW horror type stuff, doing that with Archie. And you know what? I kind of respect that in a weird way too. Got some chats here. Man of War. Yeah, that one hand looks bad. The trailer is dreadful, which is a shame. The director is the same from the Solomon Kane film. Interesting. Which in my opinion was way wide off the mark of Howard, but still was a fun fantasy flick. I haven't seen the Solomon Kane one. I've heard good things about it. I started watching a little bit at the beginning and I was kind of like, I'm not sure if I dig this. Might have to give it another look because I know a lot of people do dig that. And Raimi says, me and my wife saw a good movie on Prime. It was called The Devil Conspiracy. You should check it out. I will look into that one. The Devil Conspiracy. I'm actually going to write it down. I'm old now. And the old memory is not so good. Dude, I saw a movie. Oh my God, I forgot. I'm doing my little reviews at the end and I forgot this one. Because Finn's was reminding me about me doing a review of Night of the Demon, which is also called Curse of the Demon. And so I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I think I had it in my watch later on YouTube. Yeah, I got to do that. I got to schedule that one. And then when I was looking on YouTube, I found another Night of the Demon from the early 80s. I think the early 80s. And I'm like going, he didn't mean this one, did he? And I started watching it and I messaged him on Twitter. I'm like, you mean the one from 52, right? He's like, yeah. Well, I was already involved. Dude, the Night of the Demon from, again, I think it's early 80s. It could be late 70s. I think it's early 80s. It is like what every horror movie parody aspires to be. But it's real. It ain't a parody. And it gets kind of weird towards the end. Oh my God. Yeah, I tell you what, if you want to spend a good hour and a half just scratching your head and kind of laughing and cringing at the same time, Night of the Demon, it involves a Bigfoot and some of the worst kill scenes you're ever going to see in a horror movie. It was pretty amazing. Raimi says he's a huge Archie fan. Oh yeah. And this one does have the story those guys do is the Super Teens versus the Mighty Crusaders. So you get all of them in there. There's There's some Mighty Crusaders there for you. Yeah, I've gotten a couple Mighty Crusaders books. I actually have one of those figures. Those action figures are a trip. I got one, but it's like I couldn't get to it right now if I wanted to, so I'm not going to try. But yeah. Now I will say this though, and this is my first complaint I've had like this with getting stuff on the Archie shop. Is this book has some folded page corners, and if you look at it's a little rough. I'm going to probably complain to them a little bit because I certainly bought a new book, but with the way the pages are folded, there's it's a few pages right in the middle of the book that even shows up at all, which, I could see if like the whole thing was folded up at the top, that could be damage from the post office, but Devil Conspiracy's on Tubi. Okay. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Anyhow, so that's the only complaint I've had so far with the Archie shop. I've had really good experiences with them. But there you go. All right. Also, from the fantasy vein, Irene Strakalski's Fiendish #3 is launching on July 24th. This is a series I'm interested in. I have not picked up yet. I was around when #2 was being, was like crowdfunding and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, I want to do it. And I kind of just sat around and did nothing. But I think I'm going to dive in on this one. She's a really excellent artist. I mean, does some absolutely beautiful work. It's more manga style, but it is, even if you're not into manga style, it's just a really, really good. I watched her on the Greybeards stream. That's Aaron Lopresti, Brohawk, Gary Martin, Kelsey Shannon at the time was still on that one. And I mean, she works fast and does amazing work. She got 2 things done while the rest of them were still working on one. So anyways, I'm going to look for that. I think there's going to be some catch up stuff not catch up stuff on that one too. You might want to check it out. check it out. Do a little Beastie Boys. But yeah, so that's coming out July 24th. Really nice stuff. And I follow her on Twitter. She just seems like just a good, honest, decent human being, which I always like to. Oh my God, TJ Hooker. I got TJ Hooker on my list, Ramey, on Tubi. I haven't started yet. I have a primetime schedule that I do, TV-wise, with particular episode. Like I do a weekly viewing of things, right? So I got here's my Sunday stuff. Like Sundays are, right now for me are The Buccaneers, old 50s British TV show, with Robert Shaw. And that's the one I oftentimes miss because I'm busy doing stuff. Doctor Who, I'm in the John Pertwee era right now, doing a full rewatch. Mr. Lucky, which is kind of a fun show. And then usually Svengoolie, or if not, then I'm working on videos or something. But so I haven't got TJ Hooker scheduled in yet, but at some point I am going to watch those. I remember him a little bit from the past. But yeah, Tubi's awesome. Tubi is a great service. There's all sorts of good stuff there. All sorts of weird stuff. Speaking of weird stuff, Dan Curtis was a giant in TV horror in the 1970s. Did TV movies like The Night Stalker, Kolchak, the Norliss tapes. Of course, he did Dark Shadows, which ran, late 60s into the 70s. Did a lot of great stuff and goes on to do like Winds of War miniseries. I mean, the dude, he started off in sports and anyways. So he did some episodes for ABC's Wide World Mystery. And I've never heard of these. Kino Lorber is putting out a set of these. So you have The Shadow of Fear with Claude Akins, Sheriff Lobo. The Invasion of Carol Inders with Meredith Baxter. This is before she was Meredith Baxter Bernie. Come Die With Me, which has George Maharis from Route 66 and Eileen Brennan. And Nightmare at 43 Hillcrest. So I've never seen these, but being a big Dark Shadows fan, It caught my eye. I don't know if I'll pick these up or not, but it's going to be coming out September 23rd. I don't have a price on that. We're talking Blu-ray, etc. So I don't know if you happen to be a fan of these, if you remember them from back in the 70s, man, you might want to check them out. They are going to be available. Kino Lorber does a lot of cool stuff. They did those Phantom House movies that I enjoy. So I'm always looking at their, what they're doing. All right, there's a Kickstarter live for a book called Shield of the Interceptor by J.D. Rosario. It is about a weapon forged along with Excalibur, but this is a shield. And this dude has gotten a hold of it, so a lot of people are coming after him, and he's fighting evil and all that good stuff. Issue number 6, $10 in print, $3 digital. Or you can get all 6 issues in digital for $15 or in print for $35. I thought it looked kind of cool. You might want to go check it out. Like I said, it's on Kickstarter. Shield of the Interceptor may kind of scratch your superhero itch. I don't know, kind of looks cool. He reminds me a little bit, kind of a little Captain America look. Or Guardian from DC Comics. We're both basically Jack Kirby. So I want to check it out. Raimi Butler, I found, Winds of War on YouTube. Yeah, Winds of War was huge. I don't know that it was the first miniseries, but it launched a lot of miniseries. That became a really hot property on TV at one point. I remember The North and the South. Patrick Swayze was in that one. It was, like two brothers fighting each other, Civil War ones, and all the stuff going on around that. There was a sequel to Winds of War, which I don't think was as highly received. But if you think about a lot of the streaming series now are basically miniseries. They're not really TV series. They're miniseries. 6-8 episodes. That's it. That's kind of what they are. And I know there's a perception a lot of people have of they don't make like long form TV series anymore. And I had that perception too. And again, I'm like, I'm going to do a video about this and I'm going to show, I think I picked like the TV lineup of 84 or something. And I went through how many episodes of each of these series for that season were there. And then I went through this is probably 2023 when I was first looking at doing this. Here's all the new stuff and how many episodes, because I'm sure it's going to be is exactly the same. If you're talking broadcast TV, it's still like 24 episode seasons for all these shows. And I will be honest with you, I had heard of almost none of these modern shows because I just don't watch modern TV anymore. I'm always off on MeTV watching old crap. But the stuff on streaming, which gets most of the attention, even if it doesn't get a massive number of viewers, but it's what the critics are always talking about. They're really just miniseries when you get down to it. They're kind of comparable to Winds of War, although maybe not in terms of quality. But the Thornbirds, Thornbirds would have been before that, huh? I think Thornbirds would have been before that. Barnes & Noble has a 50% off all Criterion movies. All of July. I think my wife and I, when we were there, saw something like that. Yeah, Seven Samurai. Oh, Yojimbo Sanjuro Brazil. Okay, so I was looking at a bunch of movies there, Man of War, and it was kind of like none of them were really getting me. If I saw those, I'd probably pick Time Bandits up at a minimum. For sure. I would definitely like to have that one in physical media. But that's some good stuff, man. Nice haul. Yeah, I don't know. No, I guess there's a little July left. I don't know. Maybe next weekend, me and my wife will hit Barnes & Noble again and check out and see what they got. But yeah, Thornbirds, I think, came before Winds of War, which Richard Chamberlain makes me also think of Shogun. Shogun was a big miniseries, I think. I don't think it was a TV movie. I think it was a miniseries, right? Which they've just remade recently. But Yeah, Richard Chamberlain was the stuff, man, for a while. And broke a lot of women's hearts when they found out he was gay. And if you've ever watched the old Land of the Lost, the son on that one was basically Richard Chamberlain's lover. Yeah, which I was reading Wikipedia one morning, early morning. I'm watching Land of the Lost, and so I'm just like looking up the actors and stuff, and I was like, I read that, and I'm like, okay, I'm half asleep. What did I just read? Oh, okay. All right, I guess so. Why not? So yeah, there you go. Weird little factoid of the day. Okay, so this is kind of a deep cut, and it's not necessarily a new. I think it's a relatively new release, but Svengoolie recently showed a friggin' great, terrible B movie, sci-fi, Frankenstein versus the Space Monster. I friggin' love this movie. It is so wrong and so right at the same time. And Mr. Lobo is going to be showing it as well. And I think Midnight Mausoleum did it too. So apparently a lot of Frankenstein versus Space Monster consciousness right now. But because Mr. Lobo's showing it, this popped up on my Twitter feed from a Etsy seller who I have looked at before. I'm aware of this dude. In fact, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's got to be that dude. So he's got these Marx style figures. We're talking the Marx as in the toy company. They did these plastic figures. They're about, I think, 6 inches tall of the Frankenstein character from that and the space monster that he fought. They're going for like $50 for the pair of them, right? Because this is like just a small dude who makes the models and then does 3D prints of them. So it's not like a big run. So they can be expensive. But since he came up, and he's called Stexe, I believe, Stexe. So if you're looking it up on Etsy, Stexe, dude has a lot of really cool stuff. He also does figures for Star Crash, classic B sci-fi picture with Carolyn Monroe in it. This is like $10 per figure, and you can tell he's going for those plastic figures, and I think they're the same size too. Tim Mee sells them. They're called like, I don't know, Space Laser Team, I think is what they're called. At any rate, he kind of used those as the basis for making these. They're very cool. He's got 2 figures for War of the Gargantuas for $20 and a Jiggly Thing from the movie, the remake of Thing, for $35. So if you've ever needed a Jiggly Thing in your life, and let's be honest, fellas, we all need jiggly things in our lives. As we get older, some of us become jiggly things, but you might want to check that dude's Etsy store out. Stexe does some really whacked out cool stuff on there. So I just thought I'd throw that in. Again, kind of a Jigglypuff. We all like Jigglypuff here. Those of us who know who Jigglypuff is. Raby Butler said, I bought 2 older miniseries. Both are great. The Sackets and, Lonesome Dove. There's another one. There's a lot of really, really classic miniseries out there. I love the big Army Men toys. They should make a Warhammer. Dude, that's a great friggin' idea. Warhammer 40,000 plastic. Well, of course they wouldn't, because it would totally disrupt their the sales of the miniatures, which are, I'm sure, would be a hell of a lot more expensive. But an enterprising person out there could do a sort of rip-off version of it, which, let's be honest, the knockoffs are a lot of times more fun than the real thing. And that'd be a really friggin' good idea. Remember those old toy sets that were kind of like the Plastic Army Men, but they were fantasy? Dragon Riders of the Styx is one of them. And you could find Dragon Riders of the Styx on eBay stuff. There's a lot of it. And I remember they did one that based some of the plastic figures off of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. The Naga was one of them for sure. and they got dinged. TSR sued them or threatened to. And so they basically still produced the Naga, but they just took the face off of it. It's really weird looking. It's just like a faceless snake kind of lot. But if you're into that stuff, man, like, there's the classic, what do they call them? Chinosaurs that were the basis for the Rust Monster and the Boulette or Boulet, you're supposed to say, but I'm like going I know enough of French to know that's not pronounced Boulet, but the Boulette, some of those other monsters the owlbear. Yeah. So if you want some other plastic AD&D monsters, go look for old Dragon Riders of the Styx, plastic figures. And there's a few that are based on the old monster manual and very, very, very cool. But yeah, plastic army men for that just actually makes sense. If you produce some wargaming rules for like mass combat, that'd be such a more affordable way to do it. That's not a bad idea. I like that, man. Man of War says too, Raimi, a bag or can of branded plastic Space Marines from games where it would break the bank or require to save a kidney at the very least. Yeah. That's a rad idea. Well, I'm positive some folks from Games Workshop are going to watch this stream. And so they'll fast track it. They'll probably have it out in another hour or so. The truth is, yeah, there are sci-fi armies. You're right. And the reality is you could take just, off-brand stuff like that and use it anyways. I mean, I'm one of those guys. I had a bunch of Warhammer stuff back in the day, and I thought I still had some of it, and apparently I don't. But, man, I painted, but I didn't have everything painted. We just kind of we just ran with it anyways. So you could totally do that. And the reason I kind of know about some of this stuff is I had thought, it'd be kind of fun to get a bunch of plastic, fantasy, but even just knights and stuff like that. And basically use H.G. Wells' Little Wars rules and just set up a war game like that with some of those plastic figures just to try it out. And I never ended up pulling the trigger on it and actually buying the things, but I kept thinking about it. And that's where I found the Dragon Riders of the Styx, and I was like, oh my God. And there were a few. Dude, there's a website, a blog. Oh, what's it called? Was it Little Plastic Men or something like that? And it did a couple different blog posts on the Dragon Riders of the Styx and those other box sets. Let me see. Styx blog. I wonder if I could actually get this thing and find it really fast. Wheeljack's Lab. Yeah, okay. FantasyToySoldiers.blogspot.com. That's the site. Go to that site. Dude, can I? You know what? I can put stuff in the friggin' chat. I'm allowed to do that. It's my chat. It's my stream. Jeez. Let's see if this will actually work or if it'll stop me. It takes a minute. See, there's a lag between me talking and actually stuff. That's why if it seems like I don't see what you're saying initially, there's a few seconds lag. But let's see if it'll let me post that. Oh, it could not be sent. Yeah, because it's probably because it's just a link. Maybe I'm not a moderator on my own site. That makes sense. And I keep calling it a site instead of a channel. So it's called, let me see this. Oh, now it's getting real funky with me. FantasyToySoldiers.blogspot.com. Just do a search for that and see what these box sets look like. They are absolutely rad. I wish I had them when I was a kid. I really do. Okay. Back to business here. Also from Kino Lorber, coming September 30th. My knee just started seizing up on me. Blu-ray 4K box set of the old airport disaster films. All 4 films that came out between 1970 and 1979. These, of course, were part of the inspiration for Airplane, the greatest comedy film ever made, in my opinion. Although there's an old movie called 0 Hour that is actually what they patterned Airplane off of. If you have never seen 0 Hour and you love Airplane, you got to go watch that movie, because some of the lines are lifted almost verbatim off of it. And you're literally watching this serious movie about a potential airplane, accident, and you're laughing because your brain is filling in all the stuff that Leslie Nielsen was saying or how he said it. Airport 77. Yeah, so apparently, there you go. Airport, the whole series. Great disaster flicks. I think my favorite disaster flick is Towering Inferno. Great cast. Well, actually, Richard Chamberlain was one of them. But Towering Inferno is just I would love to see that on the big screen. I wish somebody re-released that one. That'd be fun. And I think Towering Inferno, well, God, was it first or was Airport first? It was about the right time. It's like all of a sudden disaster movies, earthquake, etc. I mean, that was the thing for a while. But yeah, Kino Lorber's putting those out. God, I'd be half tempted on that one. I don't think I'm tempted enough. However, way stoked for this one, and I probably will buy it. The complete Huckleberry Hound Collection, 11-disc set in 4K, coming out August 26th. I am still praying for a release of Quick Draw McGraw. We just did another deep dive, my wife and I did, on this, going, why don't we have those? And you start looking, and it's like, they don't exist. They have released so much stuff, Hanna-Barbera. No Quick Draw McGraw. Now, they said it was because of, they needed to find better copies to work off of, and there were, music issues, which seems unlikely, honestly. My sneaking suspicion is it's because Baba Louie is in it, and they're worried about getting called racists for having Baba Louie. Which is sad, because again, Baba Louie is the smart one, just kind of like with what's his name? Is it Sancho with Don Quixote? I mean, that's kind of the pattern for Quick Draw McGraw. But the same thing happened when Warner's was putting Speedy Gonzales cartoons on, God, would it have been Cartoon Network? Or would it have been, what's the other one? Nickelodeon? One of them. And so all these activists, none of whom were Hispanic. Why, how dare you? Speedy Gonzales is offensive, character, and blah, 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 blah. And they go, oh, we'll take it off. We're so sorry. And then actual Hispanics start writing in going, where the hell did the Speedy Gonzales cartoons go? What are you doing? He's our dude. We love this guy. And they went, oh, okay. They put it back on. I wonder if that's not behind Quick Draw McGraw not being given a major release. How could you have friggin' good copies to work off of Loopy to Loop and not Quick Draw McGraw? Yogi Bear, but not Quick Draw McGraw. Snagglepuss, but not Quick Draw McGraw. Huckleberry Hound, but not Quick Draw McGraw. They're all from the same damn time period. I think they're lying about it, but hopefully someday we'll get Quick Draw McGraw, El Kabong, some of the best cartoons friggin' ever. Remember the dog who'd get the dog treats, and he'd do the whole, oh, and then he'd shoot up in the sky. And dude, I loved Quick Draw McGraw when I was a kid. Hey, bringing that up, I showed this off a week or two ago, and I got an Amazon gift card. So I made a couple purchases, and I just wanted to see how this came out. Mark Christensen, who does Hanna-Barbera style, did this coloring book for a sort of mythical cartoon. Very much in the Hanna-Barbera style. I'll probably at some point just donate this to, maybe even to my daughter's kindergarten class or something. I don't know if it would make sense, but just very cool. Yeah, I just wanted to see, how will that come out? Will it work? Just printing a coloring book? It really does. Paper works. It looks like an old style coloring book, really, from when I was a kid. It was $8. So I thought, what the hell? Man of War, full seasons of Thunder the Barbarian and Herculoids, 40% off both. I have those. Those I have. But that's, yeah, so folks, the dog's name was Snuffles. Thank you, Anton. Hey, what's up, man? So you need to get to Barnes & Noble, if you got one, handy, and check it out. They got some good deals going on. Oh, yeah, Herculoids. I freaking love Herculoids. We would watch that, my daughter and I, when she was little, on Boomerang. And I got pretty good that I could do, were they Gloop and Gleep? Was that their names? I could imitate them. All right, hold on. Let me try. See if I can still do it. It's like it just came to me one day. There you go. That's my Gloop and Gleep impersonation. Yeah, we do have Johnny Quest. I love the Johnny Quest one, too. It says the complete series, and it's like it's only one season. They only made one season of Johnny Quest. From what I understand, it was sort of not money intensive exactly, but it was time intensive to do the animation. So if you've ever watched the Johnny Quest with the Yetis, there's a couple scenes with a Yeti running and you're going, the style doesn't look right. It looks like something you'd see in Flintstones. And that's because it was animated by the Flintstones animators. They had to bring them in to get this thing animated because they were running out of time. So Johnny Quest, one of the great cartoons of all time, bar none. But it was a tough one. It was a tough haul to try to do that, but it kind of paved the way for more realistic animation on TV, that you kind of get from Scooby-Doo later and, just going right on through. I've never really seen the 90s Johnny Quest. I've only seen the originals, Ramey. Yeah. Real Guns, Real Bullets. It was, the other thing I think that hurt Johnny Quest was that was right around the time that parents groups started getting angry. By parents groups, we mean angry moms. Started saying, we get violence off of television. And which, to be honest with you, I find Gen X to be a lot less violent than, say, a lot of younger people nowadays. So maybe they weren't completely wrong on that about violence. But that's why, like, the Super Friends, can't actually punch anybody. They have to actually just, grab people and hold on to them. If you've ever seen Batman the Brave and the Bold, which I love that cartoon, it's like Silver Age all the way. They did an episode looking at different versions of Batman over the years. And they do a segment based upon the Hanna-Barbera Batman Scooby-Doo crossover. Only in this one, I think they have I think Batmite is involved. I think is who's doing this. He turns the controls off so that in this version, the Batman and Robin and Scooby and Shaggy are able to beat the crap out of the Joker and Penguin, I believe. But of course, they even replicate where sometimes the Bat logo would be inverted, the colors, because it was kind of sloppily done. If you've ever seen Batman the Brave and the Bold, give them a try. They get better as they go and really fun. They weren't allowed to use a lot of characters when they started off, but the response was so big that they let them use Superman and they let them use Wonder Woman and all this other stuff. It's one of the best DC cartoons they've done. They rotate out. Oh, great markdowns. Earlier this year, I got Dragon Slayer 4K Steelbook for $17. Maybe you should be a PR guy for Barnes & Noble. You're doing good work here. Definitely. Brave and Bold series on DVD. Yeah, Brave and the Bold is super, super fun. Well, we got a couple more new releases. This one, if you're into comic strips, this looks at American comic strips from 1895 to 1915. It's from Fantagraphics. It's called Society is Nix, which comes from a particular comic strip. 200 cartoons by more than 75 cartoonists. It's $100, so it's an expensive hardcover. But if you like really early comic strips, and this is kind of the foundation of where comic strips were coming from, and I mean, really became a great American art form, you might want to check this one out. That is, I think, I think it's for sale now. It might be a pre-order. I might be wrong on that. If you go to the Fantagraphics site, though, you will find it. Oh, they do a lot of great releases. They really do. All right. New acquisitions for the Den. And I agree. I mean, with Anton there, Batman Brave and the Bold is just as good and wonderful as Batman the Animated Series. I mean, they're very different. They're very different, but the quality level is actually really high. Brave and the Bold is sillier, although Brave and the Bold does an episode of Batman tracking down the killer of his parents that got pretty damn serious. It felt like an animated, series episode, but I agree, it's a great one. So like I said, I got a Amazon gift card. So I grabbed a couple things that I'd sort of been playing with in my cart for a while and hadn't pulled yet. Psycho KO, Colossal Comics Compendium. It's kind of inspired by old cartoons and stuff like that. And I thought, what the hell? I'll give this one a try. I have not really cracked in and read it yet, but it looks like it might be fun. They do some cool stuff. They got a thing online now where you can use it to make designs that would fit with the characters in the book. So you can design your own. So I grabbed that, and I don't know. Finn's probably not on this one. I don't see him in the chat, but he might watch it later. And I think he ordered this too. Nancy wears hats. He and I, we communicate on Twitter here and there. We have both become like latter-day. That did look like the Wonder Twins, didn't it? We've become latter-day fans of the Nancy comic strip from Ernie Bushmiller. There is a guy who tweets out Nancy strips. And like I said, Twitter for me, like, there's a lot of drama there if you want to do that. I mute most of that. I'm there for fun. And so I follow a Snoopy account, Calvin and Hobbes, Nancy, the outbursts of Everett True. I showed one of those off on a stream earlier. They are a trip without a suitcase. They ought to be in that Fantagraphics book. But Nancy, I remember as a kid being like, yeah, that's fine. And now I'm reading them, and I really got into it. So this is a relatively new release of Nancy strips, and they're going to do some more volumes. This might even be a second volume that they're working on. But I love this first strip. This is a picture of Nancy in a heavy snowstorm. Here's a portrait of Sluggo sitting in a very dark room. Here we see Nancy and Sluggo walking in a dense fog. Dear reader, I know you'll forgive me, but I was out awfully late last night, and I'm so tired. Happy New Year, Ernie Bushmiller. Go that way, yeah. So he would do some stuff that was a little more, I don't know if I want to say, like, not exactly surreal, but a little bit surreal. So looking forward to reading through that. I got delivered a crowdfund that I did from Crowfire Studios, Band of the Crow. And I just wanted to show the packaging off. It was a good price. And boy, I'm like going, I hope you made a profit on this. Because you did a really nice job with all this. Got a little sticker. Got a thank you note. Nicely printed. Let me get the imagery right there. And then the book, still in the plastic. I haven't had time to read it yet. Fantasy story. Look at that. That really reminds me of some of the bande dessinée that you get out of France. So this is book one. Looking forward to more. Going to give that a read and review it probably on my next stream. So there you go. Now, the last acquisition I managed to make that got delivered this week. One of those things I've been lurking, trying to find, like a jungle cat, waiting for that sick gazelle to get into my field of vision. And this is partly because Disney screwed up so badly doing their Mego figures here recently. But I managed to get a vintage Mego Spider-Man in pretty damn good shape and at a pretty damn nice price. I noticed that the seller sent a nice little thank you card. I'm guessing they don't generally do toys. Sophie's Home and Garden. So probably put it on for a little bit less than she could have. But anyways, he's in pretty good shape. There's a little damage to the costume on the front, but not terrible. The Marvel Migos they can be pretty damn expensive because, the DC ones, you've gotten a ton of new releases for. So you don't have to buy vintage. Kind of have to go vintage. And then, they've got a thing going with Disney right now. They just put out a Fantastic Four ones, but they're exclusive to the Disney parks and the Disney store. And I tried to buy the Spidey set, and it was impossible and pissed me off. And so I'm pretty much done with all this exclusive crap. So my Marvel Mego is going to have to be vintage unless they decide to start mass producing. And really, if I can get Spider-Man, if I can get the Thing, if I can get Thor and Captain America, I'll be satisfied. But I'm going to be looking for those good prices. Yeah, it is the original costume. Yeah, exactly. That was the thing. I was like, okay, let me look. It does say on the back 76. Or okay, yeah, it does. It's the real deal. Let me see if I can unsnap it. I don't want to unsnap it. I'm going to leave it be. But yeah, the colors are friggin' great. I was amazed at the condition. I'm like, okay, but it's broken, right? No, it's not broken. Looks really, really, really good. So like you said, yeah, there's that little blemish on the front, and I'm like, I can live with the blemish on the front. It was a nice find. It was a nice find, Anton. I agree. You just, look, you wait. And you see a lot of stuff go through expensive, and then one day, there's one, buy it now. I think this one was buy it now for like $20, 25. It's like, oh shit, okay, let me look. Yeah, buy it now. So you just got to wait for it. You don't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, if you want the perfect shape, you got to spend a lot of money. If you want it now, you're going to spend a lot of money. If you're willing to wait and are willing to take a little flaw here and there, you can do pretty good with collecting. All right, I got 3 quick little reviews to do to wind this one up. Because I didn't have a lot of time to watch movies or anything this week. I did finish the Star Maidens TV series. 1976, 13 episodes. It was done by the UK and West Germany. If you're an old guy like me, you remember when there was a West Germany. It is basically a battle of the sexes sci-fi show. So, remember, Women's Lib, kind of new, back in the 70s. And it is just about as cringy as you would think. It doesn't have the cool design going for it that you get like with Jerry Anderson stuff from back then. You get episodes set on Earth. So the basic idea is there is a planet that orbited Proxima Centauri called Medusa. That is matriarchal. But if you really look at it, it's a totalitarian state ruled by women. So it's not even quite comparable to Earth. It's like, it goes a little step further. It gets pushed out of orbit and winds up in our solar system, which doesn't really make any sense. I mean, because they have to move underground on the planet. It still doesn't make that much sense. So it ends up in orbit around the sun and very relatively near Earth orbit. So 2 men escaped from Medusa to Earth, seeking asylum. I guess they picked up our radio transmissions, TV transmissions, saw some beer commercials and said, hell yeah. And so the Medusans come after them because they own the men. Because again, the men on Medusa are not just like sort of like, well, you're not allowed to be a scientist because you're a man. They're like slaves. So it's, again, not a really good representation of the war between the sexes on Earth. MST3K could have some fun. Yeah, absolutely. Like a hyena. I know, that's what I do. I look for the sick and the young and the old and the wounded. So the Medusans come after him, and you get episodes set on Earth, and they're the more sort of battle of the sexes type of shows that are kind of cringy, but there were some guys who were really weird back then about this kind of stuff. Like the idea of women being able to go out and work really to them seemed like the end of the world. Now we're at a point now where we're like going, look, I mean, there are trade-offs and there can be problems, but I mean, obviously it wasn't the end of the world. There were some weirdos back then, but there are a couple of episodes who, that they're set on Medusa, because there's also a couple Earthlings end up on Medusa. One of them's a man, and of course he's treated like crap there, even though he saves their asses a few times. I think they really were saying, look, we're better off if we don't have one group in charge than the other. If we just all being, not jerks, it's better. But the ones on Medusa are kind of cool from a sci-fi standpoint. There's one where there's like these rains that are destroying the planet because of, I guess, kind of like pollution. You get the feeling that the women on Medusa are so convinced of their infallibility that they can't see where they're kind of causing themselves problems. And this dude's pointing it out. There's a couple like that, that are actually decent little sci-fi episodes, but by and large, you primarily watch it because it's kind of see, Rami, I know what you mean. Yeah, there were some guys who really, 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 really had a problem. In fact, if you read some 70s DC comics, gets a little bit like that, gets a little salty about it. And there's also the Marvel Avengers that got rid of Ms. Marvel for a time. The guy writing that really had a problem with Ms. Marvel and really kind of did a character assassination on her. And so when Carol Danvers shows up again, having lost her powers to Rogue, Claremont basically declares war on this guy and kind of declares war on the Avengers too. And you're going, well, the Avengers are just characters. They can't control how things were written. But it's kind of they must have made jars of pickles. Exactly. They eliminated all bugs, and there was nothing left for men to do. We lost our wedge into patriarchy when there were no bugs to scare people. But yeah, so there were some weird sort of stuff like that in comic books too back in the day. But, like the one thing that got me is the police. You see the policewoman like right up front. They're like wearing tight short shorts. And you're like going, well, that looks like those were designed by men rather than women. Because most of the women aren't wearing super revealing clothing on Medusa. But their police force kind of is. I mean, it's sort of a fun sci-fi design. You could maybe see it on original Star Trek, but you're like going, that looks like something guys would have designed, not women. Okay, well, whatever. I guess women nowadays wear the hell out of yoga pants. So anyhow, the other one I watched, another 13-episode series called Chopper One from 1974. It was a lead-in to a show called Firehouse. This show was canceled after 6 months. Firehouse a month later, which I think Lauren Green was on that one. Starred Jim McMullen and Dirk Benedict about 4 years before Battlestar Galactica. 2 police officers in a police chopper. It's fine. It doesn't work that well. It's not like a Jack Webb procedural type show like Dragnet or Adam 12 or Emergency that tries to basically get the facts right. It doesn't really do that. Like these guys will be flying around in their chopper and they'll just like land on a roof real quick and jump out and chase somebody. And you're going, I don't think police helicopters work that way for the most part. But it also wasn't quite exciting enough, like, say, a Chips or a Streets of San Francisco that aren't terribly realistic in police work. So it's kind of like in between, and I could see why it didn't quite make it. But it was kind of fun seeing Dirk Benedict, in one of his earlier appearances on TV. So Chopper One, the only movie I got a chance to really watch other than that Night of the Demon I talked about earlier was Carry On Screaming from 1966, one of the Carry On series. This one being a parody of horror movies. It wasn't bad. I had a few laughs out of it, but I think basically you come for Fenella Fields and you stay for Fenella Fields, who's the slinky-looking, creepy chick in the front. It was kind of funny though, but it wasn't my favorite of the Carry On films. I think the Cleopatra one is the one I like the best. So, but I've been trying to go through that series because it was like such a big series for British movies and such that you like to sample these things. And that's pretty much it in terms of little reviews this time around. So what we've been at an hour and 20 minutes. Thank you for everybody in the chat. Raimi, Anton, Man of War, 665, Neighbor of the Beast, and of course, my moderator, Lady Wendelin. But thanks for chatting with me, man. I had fun. I hope you had some fun too. Maybe saw some new releases you want to check out. But hope you have a blessed Sunday. If it's been rough, I hope it gets better for you real soon. So until next time. What do I got coming this week? Wednesday, review of a Fantastic Four board game from the 70s. It was based on that cartoon with Herbie. Loosely based. And I am going to actually do a review on Friday of the Fantastic Four. No, not the one from 2025, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me? The one from 1994, executive produced by Roger Corman. A misunderstand movie that was never released, but I'm going to do a review on it. And you might want to watch it because it's got a lot of heart. It's not great, but for a movie with I think $1 million budget, it's not that bad. So that's coming up this week in Dad's Den. Until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. And I'll hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Time for me to go read some comics and maybe watch an old movie or two. Bye-bye.